Hey there Flock, welcome to the Epic Hobby. I'm Mike Cousins from Epic Duck Studios, and today I'm going to be finishing up Colossus by painting the yellow aspects of his spandex as well as his belt, and finishing up the little crest on his belt as well. I'm going to be using a couple different paints to accomplish this, mostly Averland Sunset for the base coat, Urea Yellow for the highlight, a little bit of P3 Moro White just to create a brighter version of the yellow as well, and I'll also be using some Sepia Wash just to add a little bit of shading to the yellow. So first things first, I'm going to get the Averland Sunset out and just base coat all of the yellow details. This is going to include his belt and basically all the unpainted aspects of his uniform at this time. There's a little bit of ribbing in his suit that separates the yellow part from the red part, and on the box art it's actually painted yellow. I tried to leave it bare so that this would be easier to paint, but a little bit of it did get red as I was applying the red base coats. So I'm just being very careful as I go along the ribbing to make sure I paint it yellow with Averland Sunset, but don't accidentally overpaint onto the red areas. Colossus's uniform almost has a turtleneck style to it where it comes really high up the side of his head, and this was probably the most nerve-wracking part of painting this miniature because I've already finished his face. I was really worried I was going to get the yellow onto his cheeks or the back of his head. Now I did get a little on the back of his head, but because it's just plain black hair there, that was a really easy part to fix later. But it was definitely, like I say, just probably the most nerve-wracking sort of part of painting this miniature. So with all the base coats down, I'm going to go ahead and wash all the yellow areas with the Sepia Wash. I'm really just focusing it into the creases of the suit, so basically the different lines that define his muscle, as well as around the ribbing that runs between the red and the yellow, but on the inside edge, so where it meets from the yellow main body to the yellow ribbing. And really just anywhere you should see a little bit of shading, I'm just applying this. So it's worth noting that my intent here is not to just wash all the yellow areas with the Sepia Wash, but to apply it specifically into the creases and folds of his uniform. But unfortunately, just because of the scale of the model, because the details are so small, it basically gets everywhere anyway. Now I've given the model a few minutes so the Sepia Wash dries, and what I'm going to do now is go back in with the Averland Sunset and just brighten up the flatter, more defined areas of the miniature, and sort of run it along the ribbing as well, so that what I do is I bring the parts back that don't need to be shaded back to the base coat color. Alright, now it's time to really start working on the highlighting. So I'm going to start with some Urea Yellow. So this is a GW layer paint that is a nice vibrant yellow, and it pairs very well with Averland Sunset. So I'm applying the highlights here in a bit of a zenithal pattern. So what that means is it's a top-down highlight. It's as if he's basically standing underneath a ambient light source. In other words, every highlight I apply is either towards the top of the model or towards the top of a particular surface. Now basically this is the exact same method I use to highlight the reds, and I can really use the red parts of the armor as a guide as to where my yellow highlights should go, because the highlights should basically carry across from the yellow to the red when a muscle group or a particular detail sort of crosses between the two. So now I'm going to mix a little bit of Moro White in with the Urea Yellow, and this will just make a brighter color to do one more successive highlight. I'm going to be using this lighter yellow to basically highlight the same areas I did in the previous step, but just refining them a little bit, narrowing down the highlight so it's a little more crisp. As I go, I'm focusing these highlights more towards the top of the model or the top of the detail which I'm highlighting. Now I'm going to mix in even more Moro White and do one more pass, basically just focusing on the shoulders. Okay, so the yellow parts are all done at this point. I'm just going to do a little bit of cleanup work. I'm going to move over to some Thamar Black, and I'm going to use this to clean up the back of his head where I got a little yellow paint on his hair, and then I'm going to start painting the X crest on his belt. So his belt buckle basically has a vertical line on both sides and then a circle in the middle with the X through it. I'm going to be base coating all of that with Thamar Black right now, just trying to leave the inside of the X showing through as red. Because I don't want to mess up any of the yellow or reds I've already painted, I am being ridiculously slow and deliberate here, and I've actually edited the video down quite a bit. I probably spent the better part of 5 minutes getting this black laid down, just to be sure that my brush strokes didn't go errant at all. Now that the black is laid down, I'm going to add some edge highlights using some Vallejo Game Color Cold Gray, and then I'll finish it up with a little bit of white afterwards. Alright, with those small white highlights down, Colossus is finished, except basing of course, which I'll take care of later, but Colossus is fully painted now. Thanks for watching this 3-part series as I painted Colossus. I really love how this model turned out, and honestly it was just fun to paint. It brought back a lot of memories of watching the X-Men cartoons as a kid, and there's just something fantastic about having that on the table now. That's it for this video, thanks for watching, and until next time, do something epic.